All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. It's a couple of minutes after 4. So welcome, everybody. My name is Sara Maugh, and I am the Vice President of Sales for Geneo, and we're here today to talk about Glo2Facial. I have a couple of people with me. You'll see Emma popping up from time to time managing our chat. So if you see her name, that's what she's doing. And then we have Julie Davis with us, and I am so blessed to be able to sit here today and chat with her. Julie, I'm going to let you give yourself just a little introduction on your background and tell everybody where you're from, since people are already asking in the chat.
Sure. So my background, without going too far back, I was a healthcare administrator turned lawyer turned entrepreneur. So I started Pura Vida Body and Mind Spa almost 8 years ago. January will be year 8, and actually successfully sold it to private equity in December of last year. So just a little while prior to that, was actually working in a plastic surgery group. So I have 10 plus years in this field and have truly fallen in love with it. It's my favorite thing I've done in my career so far. So yeah, I'm just excited to be here. And one of the things I love to do is help others grow and scale their business. So
Well, we're going to get started. We've got some questions for you, Julie. So I'm going to start with the first one. So you've grown Pura Vida Body and Mind Spa into such a successful business. What do you see as the most important drivers of profitability in a med spa today?
great question. So when I'm looking at profitability, I really want to focus on service mix because depending on what services we're offering, our profitability could be really high or it could be pretty low. So what I mean by that is looking at cost of goods for the services that I'm rendering. And then measuring that also against high patient satisfaction. So ideally, I want to have services that have little to no consumables, but give big and visible results. And I feel like that really drives profitability, but more importantly, also patient retention, which I think, is critically important right alongside profitability.
Yeah, and I think all of the things that you said are relevant and common for most practice managers. When you evaluate new treatments, what financial or operational metrics do you look at to decide if they're worth investing in? And you kind of just elaborated on one of them.
Yeah, I was going to say that it's like a perfect segue, right? So yeah, I mean, I think return on investment, we hear that term a lot. And sometimes salespeople think about it differently, right? So for me, when I'm talking about return on investment, I like to see return on investment per treatment. So what is the treatment cost versus that price point? What are we selling that treatment for? And then look at things that also, as far as evaluating whether I'm going to bring that service on, is scalability. So for me, I have 6 estheticians. What's the price of that device that I'm looking at that I need in order to render that service, right? Because I'm going to need 6 of them, or I'm going to at least need multiple, right? Maybe not 6 necessarily, but I need multiple. So what's that cost going to look like? And then some of the things that, I feel like we all would just know, which is like safety and efficacy of the treatment, that's always got to be really, really important. Ease of use, how quickly can the team adopt it and use it? Or are they going to feel intimidated by it? And then how well does this new treatment option that we're considering going to fit within our existing services? So, those are kind of the key factors that I look at when I'm trying to determine whether to add a service line or add a device or even add a product for that matter.
Julie, one of the things I love about you, and we talked about this the other day, is that you really think like a salesperson, which I think is great because as a business owner or a practice manager, you really need to be thinking about how you're going to sell and grow your business. And as a sales leader, I definitely appreciate this, right? So I
Mhm.
love that you mentioned scalability. I think that's something that a lot of sales reps have not thought about, and I love that you point that out, but also practice managers and business owners and thinking about the scalability, especially to their estheticians. So I love that you brought that up. So what about Glo2Facial makes you confident in its ability to deliver on profitability?
So really what I just said, let's hone in on the fact that it has a pretty low cost of goods, so that right there tells me my margins are going to be good, but then more importantly, can I sell it? And it appeals to a very wide demographic. It's really good for all skin types. There's no downtime. It gives instant results. It makes it really easy to market this. It's very easy to upsell around the Glo2Facial. We have it set up where we have some ultimate type treatments, and then it's super easy for us to bundle it into our membership programs, and which creates that recurring revenue. So again, it's kind of like all those things. It's kind of the icing on the cake, right? Is just being able to deliver all those things that I said are key to whether I decide whether to purchase such a device.
So how do you calculate your ROI on a treatment like Glo2Facial?
I keep it really simple. I don't think it has to be complex. So I'm really going to look at the cost per session. What is it going to cost me? So not just the pods and the cost of goods, as we call it, but also looking at the esthetician time. So is this an hour service, a 30-minute service, right? In our case, we book an hour for the service. Um, so when you look at this, it's basically a $50 cost if we include esthetician time and the cost of goods on it. So, I mean, when you just break it down, it's really simple math, right? We charge 250. I think that's a very doable rate. I think that depending on the market you're in, you might even charge 300 or 350. You always have to set your prices according to your market. And so basically for us, that's $200 a treatment profit in an hour. That's pretty darn good for an esthetician to be earning, $200 an hour just for that, right? And then of course products on top of that, if we're looking at what the esthetician's, KPIs look like. That's another discussion altogether. So really, if you just do that math out, 100 treatments a month, which is super, I mean, we well exceed that because we have 6 estheticians, but at 100 treatments per month, you're talking $20,000 a month in profit.
So
So
I'm just curious and I have to ask how this compares to other devices or products that you're using from just a cost of goods standpoint. Is this one of your best? Is it, kind of where does it fall in the rankings? I'm just curious.
yeah, great question. I think when I'm comparing facial devices, it's very competitive. I don't think that we may be a few dollars um, less than most. But I think for most of them, they're competitive. Now, I will say that and be very transparent that I don't have hydrofacial. So, and that's why their cost of goods, in my opinion, just kept getting too high, and I just didn't see the value there. But for us, it's very competitive. It's on the lower side as compared to some of our other facial device options. And we do have four total facial devices that we offer.
Awesome. So client retention is critical to profitability. So what systems or strategies have made the biggest impact on keeping your patients loyal?
So I think it is critically important to focus on pre-booking appointments. Pre-booking is completely related to retention. If you don't pre-book, you're going to have low retention. It's just factually, I didn't make that rule up. I've tested it out over the 8 years though, and it absolutely is the case. So for me, we have accountability metrics for our estheticians, and one of the most important ones is pre-booking. And I do require that they do the pre-booking in their rooms, because I've also found that if they book it in the rooms one-on-one with a client versus bringing them to the front desk or the checkout space, that the pre-booking goes up exponentially when it's done in the room. And I require 70% metric on that. So that's a threshold. And then I have some carrots and incentives for those that exceed that threshold. But we just know that when we pre-book clients, we retain them. And then the more often that they're back, the more opportunities that we have to talk with them about other things as well, or upgrading those services and so forth. So it just keeps people retained. So I think that's the most important thing when you're focusing on retention. And it's the
Well,
easiest thing to do.
I love the 70% rebook goal. So tell me more about how estheticians reach this and how you as a practice manager set this up for success.
Yeah, that's a great question, because I have found that when I have established estheticians come on board, if we have some natural attrition, what I usually find is that they have the lowest pre-booking rates, because one, they haven't had accountability where they used to work. And two, it's the way they go about doing the pre-booking. So I have a rule here. We don't ask, we tell. We tell the patients when they need to be back, and we use verbiage that's something like, I mean, they can kind of script it how they want and find what's comfortable, but I'm pretty clear that it needs to be something like, Ms. Smith, hope you enjoyed your service with me today. I need to see you back in a month so that we can continue working on, and then we want to make sure that it's relevant to the conversation. That might be your pigment, it might be your rosacea, it might be your acne. But when we tell the patients in that way, it really helps that pre-booking rate. It doesn't leave that close-ended question, do you want to rebook your next appointment today? We don't say that. That's a no-no here.
Yeah.
So
Well, and as a client, I love that because I want someone to tell me what I need to do. So
yeah,
I love that.
I
All
think most
right.
people actually appreciate that. Yep.
Yes, 100%. So what advice would you give to other practice managers or owners about building team culture that supports profitability and retention?
So for me, I think having clarity and transparency with your team is super important. I mean, even going through a sales process, I was very transparent with my team. And I also try to be clear in the goals that I'm setting. So whether it's their key performance indicators, so those KPIs, the metrics, whatever we want to call them, I want to make sure they know what I'm measuring and why I'm measuring it, and then how to be successful in those metrics. So I think most people in this space perform really well, and it just improves the culture if they understand what's expected of them. And so I give them clear direction on, how to keep their jobs. And then I give them really clear direction on how to far exceed those expectations and put incentives and carrots around that so they can really see how do I become a high performer? What does that mean? What does that look like?
I, I love that. So with that said, how do you train your team to ensure that every treatment, especially high value services like Glo2Facial, translates into a great client experience that encourages the rebooking?
Oh, that's a loaded question. I could say so much about that. So, we do a lot of coaching and role playing here. Number one, just backing up before that, though, I would say that, one thing when we brought Glo2Facial on, it was well received by the team because the trainers did a really great job. It's a relatively ease of use device, but they did a great job in explaining how to use it, why to use it, and how to sell it, right? So, we are in sales. We're in aesthetics. Every single person in this business is in sales, whether you like it or not. You signed up for it, so you got to get good at it, right? But I think the trainers did a great job there. And then I try to coach and train as well, and just make sure that we can communicate clearly. So role play is really important to that. I have found that sometimes people have a lot of knowledge in their brain, but they have a trouble articulating it. And so if we can't clearly articulate to our patients why they need a treatment and why they need to come back in a month for that same treatment or what have you, it just doesn't work too well. And so really that role play, which everybody hates, they just hate it, but it's really, really helps them to articulate that clearly, succinctly in that treatment room and in a way that makes them sound as intelligent as they are and as smart about skin as they are. And again, kind of going back to that pre-booking, if you do that really well, then you get the pre-booking. If you get the pre-booking, you retain clients. And so everything works and wins. And then I'm going to actually let you speak about this, Sarah, but I'm going to plug this for you because I think it's a phenomenal tool and it's super unique to Glo2Facial, which is your app. Like
Yeah,
no other company offers that. So I'm going to let you talk about that if that's okay, because you can probably
yeah,
explain it better than I do since I'm not an esthetician. I don't use it every day, but I think it's genius.
yeah. And one of the things I love as a sales leader is the simplicity of having one app that is just a resource for everything. So customers have access to all of our virtual tools, whether that be our online training, our social media posts, all of our marketing, our digital resources. They have access to everything they need right there at their fingertips. They can also order their consumables through our app as well. So it's a really nice a nice application that makes it really easy to do business with us. And we set you up for success by giving you the resources you need to be able to be trained and to sell and market the facial. As you said, we are all salespeople. So
Yeah.
the app is absolutely wonderful. So thanks for plugging that.
Yeah, I was gonna say too, another thing that you guys do that I think is super unique is you've had a lot of external trainings offered, and I don't see that offered with other companies as much. And again, I'm being fully transparent here. I've got other devices, right? It's not my only facial medical grade facial device, and I don't see others with offering that much education to the people who are using it, to the end user. So I think it's great.
Yeah, and that's another thing I love is that the practice development managers really putting a lot of emphasis on making sure that all customers have all the support that they need. That's something we're really dedicated to. All right, so you are a powerhouse leader and practice manager. So I want to know, how did you got here? what business philosophies, books, podcasts, etc. What can you share with us, or what do you subscribe to? What works for you?
Hmm. So, well, thank you for saying that. I think actually a lot of my strength and becoming a leader is largely just from my upbringing, to be honest. But with that said, I've learned to have a lot of grit and a lot of perseverance from a young age, and then also to have a lot of faith. And so for me, I guess you said, what philosophy do I follow? It's really simple, and it's just do the right thing. And I know that sounds so super basic, but in doing the right thing, we're serving clients, right? If we serve clients in the right way, and we put patients before profits. That's our motto around here. And when we do the right thing, put patients before profits, the money always flows from it. So and you just feel better about it, right? So I try to lead with integrity and with heart. And I think that it's made the money just happen, from just doing the right thing. Um, Books, I have very little time for books, but the time that I make for one that has gotten me through every hurdle, every challenge, every up, every down, being a business owner, and there have been many along the way, is the Bible. I can find every answer for every challenge I have in there, and so I try to start every day that way. So that's it. And then like podcasts, I love because I can consume information on the way to work, which I have a 45-minute drive, and on my way home from work. So, but I'm not married to one. Like I bounce around. Sometimes I'm having a week where I need inspirational podcasts to fill me up, or a Christian podcast, or sometimes it's medical aesthetics. I've spoken for some, right? So I see the value in learning from other aesthetic leaders because there are many people out there far smarter than me in this industry. So I try to soak up as much content as I can that way. It keeps me humble. And there's a ton of rock stars out there that are doing things like this where you can just gain so much great information. So consume content, consume tons of content.
I was about to say, would this podcast be one of your favorites? It's a
So
it's a
far,
it's a trick question, right?
so far. No,
Uh,
actually, I've really enjoyed it. It's a good
yeah.
topic. It's a fun topic. It's something I love. Yeah.
So, according to New Beauty, Instagram now accounts for 30% of new aesthetic patients, leading ahead of word of mouth, which is 26%. As a practice owner, how do you balance investing in marketing versus relying on word of mouth or retention programs to fuel growth?
So my mindset is, well, even backing up. So when I started my business, I didn't start it for fun. I started it to sell it. It was going to be my legacy for my family. It was meant to be something that I would create and generational wealth out of, and hopefully enough, left over to make some kingdom impact. And that's very important to me. So the reason that I mentioned that to you is I needed to grow a healthy business really quickly. And so marketing dollars were always in my budget, and I've dedicated 5% of top line revenue along the way or more, depending on business needs. But the interesting part of what you said is there's a couple of things, a little pro tips I'll give everybody here. Pro tip number one, you said it, 30% of business coming from Instagram. I did not know that. That is crazy. So, and guess what? Social media is free. It's free.
Mhm.
If you aren't good at it, find somebody that's good at it, hire them and get them doing it, and really, really grow your engagement around social media because it's super powerful. Um, and then putting some paid ads behind that can be super powerful as well. So we do that as well. And then I'd also just like to say, like, don't forget, for those established businesses here on this call, don't forget your own database. Those are the easiest clients to convert to a sale. They already know you, they already trust you. So make sure you have a process in place like we do, where we're constantly screening those patients for the conditions that they have interest in being treated. Because when you talk to them about the things that they've effectively raised their hand and said, I want to know more about that because that's marked on a sheet, right? It's really easy to cross-sell, upsell, all of those things. So constantly mining your own database can just be super, super powerful. It doesn't cost you a dime. Doesn't cost you a dime. I mean, you're in sales, right? What's the 80-20 rule? 80% of your business comes from 20% of your clients, right? And that's that database, right? So those are my pro tips. I don't know. Hope those help.
Well, and as a salesperson, I have to say this because I have to brag on our organization for a minute. But one of the things that we're doing right now is offering a live box subscription. And so I just wanted to mention that because I think it's an awesome tool that can help people with social media marketing. So anyway, I just had to make sure that everybody on this call knew that because it's something that we're super excited to offer our customers. And it definitely is a remarkable tool that really helps people with this social media marketing aspect. I myself am older than I should admit, and still tech challenged. And so
Yeah.
I kind of joke with everyone about posting because I try my best to post well and make good video and make good things, and I never do a good job of it. Thank goodness for our marketing team. And
Yeah,
Emma,
there's
Emma,
two things to say about that. Number one, authenticity is really liked. So even if you're authentically bad at it, just be authentic. So,
there you
and
go.
there you
It's
go.
true.
So that still works. And then, like I said before, I'm the same. I'm 55. Like this is not it's not my jam. I don't want to be on social media all the time, and I don't get half of the things that people think are funny, and whatever. So you pay people to do the things that you're not great at, right?
Yeah.
But it's important. You got to do it.
Well, and my marketing director is on this call, so I have to ask the question that what are some examples of top converting marketing tactics that you would use?
Are you asking me or Emma?
You.
Yeah, so I think the top tactics, well, I mean, it's hard for it's so I mean, for me, I really say it's mining my own database. I mean, if you ask what top is, but my philosophy on marketing is you need to do all the things because you're
Yeah.
going to reach people in different places.
Mhm.
The people my age, we're on Facebook more than we are on Instagram and definitely more than TikTok. But you need to be on TikTok, you need to be on Instagram, you need to be on Facebook, you need to be running some ads in there. I'm not saying everybody has to do all of what I'm doing, but to grow a business and scale it to the size that I have, it's being everywhere so that you're reaching your clients wherever they are. And just remembering that people are bouncing around even between these different social media platforms. They're not just sitting on one. And so being able to grab them and being available everywhere they are. And then honestly, we're on LinkedIn. We post consistently on LinkedIn because there's a whole bunch of professional people out there that really are my ideal client, professional women. I want lots of those people. So we post there. And there's lots of ways that you can streamline all this stuff so that it doesn't consume you to death. And then text marketing, really important. People receive text marketing better than email marketing, but that's not to say that we don't do email marketing. We're still doing it. So we really have our hands in all the different marketing buckets, and consistency is key. So being consistent. So if you're going to do two of those 5 or 6 things I listed, do them consistently. So.
So, and I'm seeing a lot of questions come through the chat. Do not worry, we're going to have plenty of time for questions. So I don't want you to think I'm ignoring it popping up, but I just wanted to make sure you guys knew that we'll get to that. I think Emma commented and said that we would get to you.
Okay.
Okay, so I want to know more about how Glo2Facial specifically contributed to your practice's growth, both in terms of revenue and in supporting client loyalty.
So I would say the way that it's contributed most for us is it was so easy to integrate into our membership program. So, so we use it all the time. I mean, we have 6 estheticians and 4 devices. So they're being used constantly all day, every day. It was easy to integrate into our service mix. And it was easy to bundle with other treatments too. So if we're doing a laser treatment, we like to do Glo2Facial before to get their skin ready, and then one after to kind of follow up and get them really glowy. So I think there's just a lot of ways that you can incorporate it into your business. For us, that's how we adopted it in. Originally, we dropped it right into our membership program and said, hey, members, you now have the option to enjoy this on your monthly membership. And so it got adopted very quickly for that reason.
Yeah, so tell us more about the membership program. What do patients get and why is it successful?
So before I tell you my most favorite part of my membership program, because we have 2 memberships, I would like to just say that I have a philosophy that some find shocking, and it is that if people aren't complaining about my prices, they're not high enough. And so we are not the least expensive by no stretch in our area. We have 15 med spas in a 5 mile radius. Competition is fierce, and most of them are competing on price. They've totally commoditized their businesses, and now they're all in a price war. And we are not playing in that arena with them, and we don't have to. So we are not, our brand is different, right? However, we know that we still have to be competitive, right? Somehow competitive. We can't just be so overpriced. And so we do that through our memberships. So we rarely discount. Holidays are coming. Yes, we're going to do some sales and stuff like that, right? But we rarely discount. The way that people get discounts from us is they enter the membership program. And that works really, really well. So our easiest membership to get into is we call it our 20 for 20 membership. So we call it the no-brainer option. It's the easiest thing to explain. And when you say it to patients, they're like, that's a no-brainer. And they pay $20 a month to receive 20% off all services all the time. Keeping in mind that our services are priced quite high, they're really paying the price that we would normally have our services priced at, that we know that we would sell our services at. So in secret, we're not really discounting anything. That's where we think that the market would bear the price anyway. They feel good about it. The best part of this is that $20 does not go towards anything. It passes right to our bottom line. Currently, with the amount of members that we have, we're creating $210,000 a year annually in passive income to the business, which is very powerful. If anybody here is positioning themselves in the next 3 to 5 years to potentially sell to private equity, get your memberships in order, simplify them, and get as many members as you can, because private equity loves to see recurring revenue, and especially recurring passive revenue, even better. And then, so it's just super easy, right? People can talk about it in the checkout. It takes 2 seconds to explain it, 2 seconds for somebody to go, oh yeah, we sign them up on our Repeat MD app, which also keeps them living on the front of our cell phones where everybody lives. So now we've got them, like we're on their home screen. So there's a lot of reasons why we like to do memberships in that way. And then the only other membership we have is we call it our Black Diamond, and that's our facial membership. And they pay a discounted rate. So instead of paying $250 a month, they pay $189 a month. And that unlocks their medical grade facial, like Glo2Facial, on a monthly basis. They get a discount. And the deal there is, yes, we're discounting that for them, but we're getting them to come every month. And when we get patients to come in every month, we know that we can make their skin look really great. Then they become walking billboards for us. Everybody wants to know where they're going, why their skin looks so great. And we can continue to sell to them the other services that we identified. Remember when I said earlier in this talk conversation, like we screen them. So each time they're in, we're able to kind of keep that sales continuum going and help get them those consultations for the other things, because we do have a very wide range of services here. We have a complete wellness vertical and all the things. So, and then we have a beauty plan, but honestly, most of our patients have not really been interested in that. I don't know. I think some people do well with beauty plans, but they just never really took off for us. So long ago, when I started the business, we had like 4 different memberships, and they all had these fancy names, and I thought they were all cute. And all I realized is they were too complicated to explain what the perks were. It confused my staff. They didn't want to talk about it because it was too much to say, and then it didn't work. When we switched and just super simplified this, memberships just skyrocketed. So we do like 800,000 a year in recurring revenue off of our Black Diamond. So between the two, we're over $1 million in recurring revenue off memberships alone.
Yeah, and you're very passionate about memberships, and it's interesting because that's something that we talk to people a lot about. And I think that people have overcomplicated the membership. So I love what you're saying about that, because I do think that's the disconnect. And even me as a client, I know if I walk in and see something that's overcomplicated, I don't understand it. So I don't know how to use it or see the value in it. So I love that. I think that's really good feedback. All right, so I'm going to pause for a second because there's a lot. I have more questions that I could keep asking all day, but I want this to be more about the 67 questions that were comments that we have in the chat. So Emma, I'm going to turn it over to the questions, and then if we have time, I'll come back and circle back with Julie, but I'd like to give our audience a chance to get their questions answered.
Yeah, that sounds great. Julie, thank you so much so far. I love your philosophy of keeping it simple. That is something we preach a lot as well, even just in setting up menus and memberships. So we have tons of great questions. I'm going to help facilitate. First thing I want to talk about is how you build your team. So Erica was asking, what are the effective ways you found to attract your dream team? Do you offer commission? What are the points that bring people into your team? I'll let you answer that, and then I have some follow-up.
Yeah, so a lot of times when I'm speaking about branding and marketing. And branding is critical to getting teams. There's two things. If you want to get the top candidates to apply for jobs for you and you don't have to go looking for them and you have a whole plethora of resumes, I'm going to show you something. This is so fun that this question came up. If anybody's local to me and you need resumes, this is my folder.
Oh
Happy
my
to
gosh.
share. Um, anyway, that's all the resumes from people who want to work at Pura Vida. It's amazing. So how do you do that? Well, you create a brand, right? That's reputable because people don't want to work somewhere where the brand doesn't have the best reputation. We're women. We care about where we work. When we're at a cocktail party or whatever, we're out with friends and or meeting new people and they say, "Hey, where do you work?" If you're embarrassed to say where you work, it's not good. And you're also not going to talk with other people to try to bring in clients. It's just difficult, right? So one, making sure I believe having a brand with a reputation like that is really important to getting the candidates to come to you. I haven't run an ad for an esthetician in 7 years.
Wow.
So the other way you do that, which really is kind of branding in and of itself, is have lots of good reviews because people are going to look at what type of employer you are by reviews. And you don't think about that. We always think about reviews for client-facing purposes, but I really do believe that people are looking at whether you're a good brand based on your reviews, right? And so word of mouth matters too. But I think having those two things, people desire to work in a place that has that kind of a reputation.
I love that. Speaking of branding, what are your thoughts on having your estheticians have their own personal brands and building their own Instagram pages? Is that something that you encourage and foster, or, what's your philosophy around that?
Okay, so there's schools of thought on this, and many people will disagree with me, and that's fine. Because have them having their own pages, here's what some employers feel, and they will not even allow them to do so. Like they are not allowed, they are prohibited. And the employer that feels that way, in my opinion, is probably because they don't want them to leave, quit, and take clients with them. And I get that. And yes, it's a risk. But if you try to be a really great employer and pay your people well and hire the right people and deliver a good culture, right? Then you don't have attrition the way that fear is, right? And so here's my further belief on that. Number one, I just try to have people want to stay. Okay, it's that simple. But beyond that, everybody's going to leave, right? They're going to leave eventually. Let's be real. They're going to move, they're whatever, right? Um, or they just get tired of role playing and then they say, peace out. It's happened. But anyway, but what's the trade-off? Well, the trade-off is if they're super active on social media and they're putting out good content, then that's way more people seeing you and seeing your business. So we have rules around it. They are supposed to make us collaborators, and I even sometimes produce copy for them to use and let them make the creatives. And so and we recently did a whole contest around that where they got a $500 bonus if they did all the posts that I asked them to do. All they had to do was do the creatives. So you just reach a much larger audience, right? And then they're building their own personal brand. And I support that as an individual because I believe that I want people to be better when they leave me than when they came here. So and I'll tell you, I've had people come and go, and my brand is strong, and I've not drained patients because of it. So even though they've left, the patients have stayed with the brand
Yep.
because the brand is always more than that one individual person, right? And
Mm.
so I think if you balance all those things together, you can encourage people to have their own brand and their own page and their own thing and reach more people to benefit your business. But I think it's a personal decision as each business owner has to make.
Yeah, exactly. I love that you shared yours. And how do you build an ecosystem? And
Yeah.
like you said, word of mouth is really important, and social media. And if you could do those things super well, I mean, you're going to have such a thriving business.
Yeah.
Jen was asking, how often do you recommend posting each of your core services to educate your patients? Or maybe how often are you asking your team to post Glo2Facial, for example, but also maybe pairing with other treatments?
Yeah, so except for this recent, I mean, sometimes I tell them the copy and the content that I'm looking for. Most of the time I let them do what they want. So I don't give them a ton of structure on a regular basis. And I have a very large team of 20 people, 11 providers out of that, 12, maybe more than that. I have to think. But anyway, so the providers are going to typically kind of focus on their niche. You know, like my injector is going to focus on her things. My wellness nurse practitioner is going to focus on her things. So if everybody's kind of focusing on the things that they love and enjoy, everything that we do ends up getting some love, right? And to elaborate on that, if you can imagine, so we have a very wide range of services here. I mean, it's easier to tell you what we don't do, which is like hair and nails. Everything else we do, because we actually have a full service day spa as well. So it's impossible for us to effectively market one service, right? Everything gets diluted when we're talking about Pura Vida's marketing, which is challenging. It's actually the double-edged sword of having a big wide range of services. It actually makes it harder, right? But if they are in their little silos, focusing on their things and putting it out there, then that stuff gets more attention through
Yep.
that way. So I hope that made sense.
It did, yeah, of course. I'm going to shift us a little bit to talk about KPIs, our favorite numbers. We had Bertie asking what KPIs are you tracking for your team? And I would also love to know what KPIs are you looking at for the business in general. We talked a little bit about individual treatments, right? And how do you track Glo2Facial? But you as the practice manager, what's important to you?
Okay, so I'm going to try to remember them all, but in full transparency here, I have middle managers that follow these for their direct reports. I no longer do that. So I'll probably miss a couple. And also, every single person that comes on board here, when they're given their KPIs, they are told at that time that they can change at any time for business reasons. Okay, so if we have a new device come on or whatever, we might change it up a little bit. But the core things that we measure are going to be that typically would not change. Pre-booking for sure. Retention for sure. And of course, I always tell my team, as long as you're pre-booking, you won't have to worry about retention. It'll just happen. So focus on pre-booking. Productivity, right? So are you keeping your schedule full? I mean, again, we do the best we can, right? But they need to take some ownership in keeping their schedules full. So productivity, pre-booking, retention, reviews. I actually measure how many reviews they're getting in, and they have a process in place for how they can request those reviews that's within our brand, and it's templated, and we ask a certain way so that we garner lots of reviews. We're between all of the platforms, we're over 3,000 5-star reviews at this point. So that's part of their KPIs, which is an unusual one you don't usually hear. Productivity, retention, sales. Okay, so service sales and product sales. And then those metrics, we go into each individual, how many days a week do they work, how many hours do they work, how many, average patients should they be seeing a day, and then sort of make projections around that we want them to hit. Those are the top ones that I can think of. And then as far as business metrics, I mean, retention is probably the most important business KPI, in my opinion, because if we're not retaining patients, we're in trouble.
Yep.
That's a quick way to go down the tubes.
Yeah. Sarah, do you have anything to add to that of what you see or encourage people to look at?
Well, actually have a question, and I think somebody else asked this in the chat, but I think it kind of aligns to KPI, and I'm just curious because I think one of the areas that I see practice managers struggle with their estheticians specifically is getting them to upsell. I hate that word, but upsell the facial that they just bought the device for. So I'm just curious if you're able to share just your commission structure and how you provide commissions for estheticians. And I know someone else asked that in the chat, so I was curious.
Yeah, so prior to the sale of the business, I did things a little differently than they're done today. A little more creative, I think. But I created a tier structure. So everybody has a threshold tier, which I call it that you get to keep your job tier. And then we have bonus tiers. All right. And so those bonus tiers are where we want you to be a high performer. Like if you reach these tiers, you're going to get additional commission or bonus. So for me, there were incremental bonuses that they could get on every biweekly payroll for exceeding metrics. Okay. So it's threshold, you keep your job, and then exceeding, if you hit these projections, these things, these goals that I want you to hit, they were getting incremental bonuses every 2 weeks in their payroll, which they loved. And they didn't hit them all every time, right? But it gave them the ability to kind of earn more money. My commission was flat, so it was those bonuses for going above, right? That's where the carrots were. The commission was 10%, and then for service and well, kind of correct that just a little bit. If we brought on a new device, like when we brought Glo2Facial on, I'd put a little carrot in that commission. And the
Yeah.
reason is I want them to hurry up and use it a bunch of times so they fall in love with it.
Yeah.
Right. Or if I ran some reports and say, oh my gosh, I don't know why all of a sudden we've dropped and people aren't doing as many tri lifts as I know they should be doing. They're not talking about it. Why have they lost energy or excitement around this? I might just create a new structure for that and say, hey, if you hit X much sales on this particular device, I'll give you a bonus extra. So as I said before, it was kind of like looking at the business needs. I always built in that flexibility to change it up accordingly. So seasonality could affect it, but they always have been taken care of financially. And even though there seemingly were some moving targets, they always did well for those that would perform. And so they were always happy, even though some of it seemed to be a little bit of a moving target.
So
Yep.
I actually have a selfish question that I would like to ask, if I can steal from the chat for a minute, Emma. Is
Yeah.
that okay?
Go for it.
So Julie, I'm just curious. I think one of the things that we hear the most, and I think this is not just for Glo2Facial, but just in general, the entire aesthetics industry, there's ups and downs of the business. And right now, I think we're kind of hit a rough patch in the aesthetic world. I think we can all agree with that. But I'm just curious, a lot of times people will say, I really love Glo2Facial. I want to invest, but it's just not the right time. And there's this sense of time is never on anyone's side, whether you're looking at a Glo2Facial or a laser or investing in a new skincare line. And I'm just curious, as you're such a remarkable businesswoman, and I'm just curious how you balance. We know you look at ROI. We know that that's one of the most important dynamics that you've mentioned. We know that you value your membership program. You've got a good business model that is going to help drive the success. But how do you balance decisions between investing and timing and when to do it? And I know I'm asking a very loaded question, but I'm just curious because I think that is probably the thing most business owners are struggling with these days, is when is the right time to invest in something else?
Yeah. It's definitely been a challenging year in 2025. Yeah, for sure. Um, and I feel that, right? Like I feel that every time I have to make the decision. But, I think this idea of analysis paralysis can affect people. And I don't suffer from that. So I just don't suffer from that. I really just do like a cursory analysis and decide whether this makes sense, right? So some of the things we looked at, but let me say this, as soon as if I know that I can sell this to clients, that they're going to want it, that they're going to get a treatment that's going to deliver results, that's going to give them something that they're happy with, right? Like I don't get locked up on is now the right time. Let me try to explain what I'm saying. So if anything, even when we're in those times, it's kind of sometimes the time to best to double down.
Yes.
Because you get people re-energized and you get people excited. Because if your team is feeling lethargic and complacent and you bring something new and you launch it really well with excitement and patients are coming in and requesting it, and we will always do like a text marketing launch to, again, that database, right? That database of people, and they're excited for something new too. People love new things in aesthetics. Anybody that's been on TikTok knows what I'm talking about because these people are obsessed with all kinds of weird stuff, most of which is gimmicks and doesn't work, right? But people are obsessed with all these tools and all of these treatments that we have to offer. So, if you have one hydrofacial and that's all you're offering to your clients, I'm of the mindset you're just not doing a good service to your client because you're saying that everybody's skin is the same and okay, can pick a different serum. Okay, fine. But, I think it's important for patients to have choices, to have different experiences, and they get excited about it, and the team gets excited about it. So, and it can be really scary to invest, but I've done it, all these years, year after year, I've always reinvested into devices. I'm proud to say that I think it has really set our brand apart in that we have the top of the line devices. And I mean, that's across all things, not just talking about facial aesthetics, but our lasers are top of the line. You know, we have cutting edge technologies that other people don't have, which puts you apart. You see, that's the funny thing. I have not had a hydrofacial in my business since this first 6 months of my business. And then I got rid of it because the cost of goods was too high and I didn't like dealing with the company. It wasn't easy to work with. And I said, you know what? I don't think that just because you're a household name that you're going to control my business. And it's fine. People ask for hydrofacial and we go, no, this is what we do have. And they're like, fine. I mean, so there's no fear in offering something that maybe doesn't have that household name. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Not if you have a well-trained staff, not if you know how to market it well, not if you do the things you need to do. And a corollary to that is, I mean, I haven't used Botox ever. The brand. Doesn't matter. Our patients trust us. They trust us to deliver and explain and educate them. And it doesn't matter. Do they call and ask for Botox? Yes. We explain we don't have it. And they're like, okay, fine. It just doesn't matter. And so I think it's all about how you position things, right? It's all about how you talk about it. It's the excitement that you bring to it. It's the excitement around your marketing. It's the excitement that your team brings to it. That's what patients will desire. And I do think it has the ability to breathe fresh air into your practice when you bring something new in, when done right.
That's great.
That's awesome.
All right.
All right,
Let me
Emma,
ask
back to the
another.
chat.
Yeah. Let me ask, we had a question come in actually on our app. Earlier, we were asking people for questions, and maybe you get this issue from your esthetician, but somebody was saying, how do you effectively offer treatments? They are having an issue where it's really hard to do the consultation, set up in the treatment room, do a Glo2Facial step, and all of that in 30 minutes. So I'm wondering if maybe you have some best practices for your team of how to make that hour-long experience or hour and a half long experience really effective, but also luxurious for the client.
Yeah, so first of all, we do it in an hour, okay? Because and I say an hour, that's also clean the room time. Okay. Um, so I told you earlier, we coach, we role play, we coach. I have some very particular ways that I ask my team to go about approaching their facials, and it should look the same every time, every patient for them, for the most part, you know, and so they should cleanse the skin, and, you know, getting ready. So cleanse the skin and then take a look at the patient's skin. And then after they've kind of assessed the skin, they're to hand them, we have an LED lit mirror, handheld mirror. We ask the patient to hold while they're laying on the bed and just walk through what the esthetician is seeing with their skin. So, you know, I see you have some melasma here, you've got some broken capillaries here. Looks like you may have, you know, you've got some redness. Have you ever been told you have rosacea? You know, and we go through like kind of pointing these things out on the patient's skin, right? So we're showing them what we're seeing. And then the feedback is to ask the patient, you know, which of those things bothers you most? Let's focus on those today as best we can. And then they're going to recommend what facial is best for them. So they may have booked a Glo2Facial and perhaps they have a really bad rosacea flare right now. We're going to choose our Glo2Facial device in that scenario because it's going to calm that down. And we'll tell them why we might be wanting to switch it up, okay? Because we want to deliver the best outcome for the patient, right? And then we also, you know, and this is all something that happens very quickly, right? That's why role playing is so important. People need to be able to articulate things in a very quick manner without it feeling rushed, right? And then I always ask them to, you know, get permission from the patient. Would you prefer this to be a quiet treatment session, or would you prefer that I walk you through what I'm doing and why I'm doing it and what it's doing for your skin? Because that's a great opportunity to educate. And we find that most people actually don't care for the quiet service because they're there for a medical grade facial anyway. They're not really there for fluff. And so most of our patients, a good 50% or better, will say, no, you can kind of walk me through it. And so they're getting educated on what the steps of the Glo2 are, why we're doing it, what it's doing for the skin. This is a great way to educate through. And then on the back end of the service, I coach them to talk with them about where they started, which was, okay, so at your next service, I want to add blah, 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 blah. So that's your upsell opportunity because I want to focus on these other areas that we identified. So I need to see you back in 4 weeks. The next time you come, we're going to add on whatever. That might be a laser, could be whatever we're bundling, right? Because I want to continue to address, going back to what we identified on the skin, right? And then it's kind of a no-brainer at the end. How does the patient say no?
Yep.
It's really difficult for a patient to go through that experience and say no. And you can absolutely do all of that in an hour.
Yep. I think the key there is the role play, and I love that you do that with your team and take the time to invest with them of how do you, we know that an educated patient is a returning patient, right? But how do you do that naturally in the consultation all the way through to what you said about you, I need to see you, not I want to see you, or when would you like to come back? That is such a shift in language that's tiny, but makes such a huge impact as you've seen in your business.
Emma, it is little shifts. It's little shifts. It doesn't take much, but being fluid and articulate is really, really important, because if you don't sound confident in what you're doing. And
Exactly.
so, the one trick to that is, so I am not a provider of any kind. I'm an entrepreneur. I had to learn how to do those consults, right? Because I can't role play with somebody if I can't coach them about what best looks like. And I think sometimes that can be the challenge with business owners or managers, is they don't know how to do it. So if you don't know how to do it and you can't role play it yourself, you can't coach.
Yep.
So
Exactly.
there's your problem, so you have to decide, what does your sales process look like? Give them a very, like I said, clarity, I said clarity and transparency, like show your people how to show up, show your people exactly what best looks like, show them what you expect of them, and then role play with them. And you got to be able to do it too,
Yep.
and so that they see what best looks like.
Mm-hmm. This
Mhm.
is great homework for everybody and joining us today.
So there's a lot more questions in the chat, and I don't want us to ignore any questions. So we will definitely get back to those, like the ones we don't get to, right, Emma?
Yep.
Okay. But I think this one is, how do you push your tri lift? And I know we've talked about this before. So somebody asked that in the chat.
Well, I don't use that word push. But I understand the question.
Yeah.
So first of all, we do a lot of we do paid ads around TriLift, so we get a lot of leads for that. So it opens that conversation. However, we screen all of our patients, and when we are looking and evaluating their skin, that is a normal conversation that we can have, right? And so kind of back to that same scenario, if you're thinking about the esthetician in the room, she's got the patient laying there, how do you feel about this area where you're starting to have a little jowling, right? It's saying the hard things in a very nice way, and then identifying whether that is a big enough concern for the patient to have the conversation. Would you like to know a little bit about a really phenomenal no downtime treatment that can correct that? It's a non-surgical option. Would you like to know more about that? And, you've got to kind of get permission to have those conversations sometimes, depending. I mean, sometimes they're coming in because they've asked for it, right? Which is fine. But it's really understanding what the device is, how it works, and how to talk about it, right? So one of the things that we script and we talk about constantly is, what many people don't know is that the root cause of lower facial aging is actually muscle atrophy. We blame the skin, but it's not just the skin. So it's little scripts like that that you hear me rattling off. I've said that to my own team 100 times if I've said it once. And once you do that, and once you role play that and you say it and you kind of have that script, like it's very easy for you to pull that out at any point in time, because everybody hates their, right? But then taking it a little step further and being able to explain, how is that treatment going to benefit them? When we tighten and tone the muscles of the face, we lift it back up. It lifts, the tissue goes with, as we tighten and tone the muscles and the ligaments, so it's just being able to have those. Same thing. If you're not comfortable with that, you've got to sit down and really think about how you're going to script that out, and then practice, practice, practice.
That's great. All right. I think that is all we have time for questions, unless Sarah, you had any closing thoughts or questions?
Just first of all, thank you, Julie, for doing this today. I love an opportunity to meet people like you that inspire me. I love watching what you've done with the business. I think it's amazing, and loved all the feedback that you shared with everybody, because it absolutely can help us all. So we just really appreciate you taking your time to share with everyone today, and appreciate everybody taking their time to listen. And you pointed out podcast earlier is one of the things that you do. And I think it's important for us to all find time to learn from others. And so I appreciate everyone that joined the call today that is listening in and taking time to learn. And then, I know we probably have a mix of existing customers, or maybe some potential future customers. So I know there was a lot of questions on here about Livebox and just if you need additional information, if you would just please put that in the chat, and Emma will make sure that everyone gets their responses. And we would love an opportunity to partner with you if you're not already a partner of ours. So please reach out and let us know if you'd like to be contacted by one of our representatives.
Awesome.
This
Julie,
has been
thank
so
you.
fun. I like the style. So thank you for having me.
Yes,
You're
thank
welcome.
you for joining us, and thanks everybody for being here. We'll send out the recording, and you'll be able to see this posted and more insights from Julie.
Bye, everybody. Have a good night.
Bye.